Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. As part of our how-to series, we're going to talk today about daytime symptoms that fully, largely, or just partially abate at night. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you personally. 2 weeks ago, we released a video on nighttime symptoms, people who are having symptoms mainly at night and almost not at all during the day. And what I like to do is to describe different symptom profiles because a lot of you were looking for that specifically. The week after that, I talked about unconscious life. And the reason that I did that, in addition to the fact that I just think it's helpful in general, is that it was leading up to this video. Because to work with symptoms during the day, it's almost more important during daytime symptoms to understand how the unconscious world is working. At night, there's a lot of unconscious material going on because of dreaming, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it. And we talked about things that you could do before you go to bed. When it comes to daytime symptoms, though, what leads to those symptoms? What leads to this profile being this way? Now, again, I'm trying to describe it. Generally speaking, I've heard about people who have symptoms during the day, but when they lie down, then they tend to be fine. Or when they go to sleep, they sleep fine. And there's all kinds of different profiles in mind-body work. So when I'm trying to figure out daytime emotions, the first place I look is emotions as the column, the emotions column. Because what's usually happening is there's an onset of symptoms. You wake up and you're okay. Or maybe you wake up with them, but you were fine when you went to sleep. I still consider that to be an onset of a symptom. And as a result, it sounds like something that's emotional. But sometimes you're going to get symptoms at a particular time of day or around particular events. When it has a daily pattern, that tends to be more doubt related. But if emotions are key, the pattern shouldn't be uniform. It's going to go up and down with your emotional life. So that's a key component to when you're looking through at symptoms and trying to understand them, to think, okay, this relates to emotions. Said another way, emotional symptoms tend to be much more sporadic once doubt is conquered. So you can have emotional symptoms that are the same way all the time, but that's probably because it's been mixed with doubt. So once you've done some doubt work in the way that you've seen me talk about in other videos, then emotional symptoms become very, I shouldn't say very, but clearer to see during the day. Doubt has been cleared away, and now it's less confusing. Before, emotions and doubt and power were all kind of mixed into one. But if you've gotten doubt down, you can look at the emotional symptoms during the day. If you haven't gotten that clear, then you're going to want to work on doubt, and we'll get to that in a bit. Now, why are daytime symptoms different than nighttime symptoms? Well, they're different in a lot of ways. There's not as much time to process emotional experience during the day. A lot is happening. A lot of times at night, when people are having nighttime symptoms, is because there isn't enough to distract them. And as a result, they're left with these emotional experiences. Well, during the day, sometimes you can't do it. Sometimes you're having so much come at you. Let's say you're at work and this person is talking about this, and there's this situation, and somebody asks you for this. A lot coming in, and you don't have time to process your emotional experience. I do want to encourage you guys, take some time to process it if you can, even just a couple minutes on your lunch break. Think about what happened to you in the morning. But this is one reason why there's a lot of daytime symptoms related to emotions. Some people ask about daytime symptoms in this regard. How can I get better when stress is inevitable? Well, I will agree with you. Stress is inevitable, but I'm a lot less stressed than I used to be, and I'm doing even more than I ever was doing. So in the old days, I would have been very stressed. Why am I not? Because we have to think about stress in a different way. Stress could be defined as what's happening to you, or it could be defined as how you take in that situation. And if you define it as the latter, that's a much more accurate viewpoint on how emotions lead to pain. Stress generally does not actually lead to pain. There's all kinds of people who have lots of stress, don't have pain. And then there's people who don't have a lot of stress that do have pain, and everything in between. And the key is how you take in stress. If you don't take it in well, that's stress. That's going to be much harder. So you want to concentrate on the meaning of the stress for you. It's going to be broad, it's going to be high stakes, but it's also going to be specific. Just like we talked about in the video on how to articulate your emotional themes, they're going to be broad, they're going to be high stakes, but they also have to be specific. Now, if you can't find it in emotion, then I toggle right over to doubt. So at times, daytime symptoms can be very, very doubt related. And this is for multiple reasons. Emotions do tend to come to the surface at night, actually. So, it doesn't point to the doubt column when things are well, sorry, let me say this better. That was not a good way to say it. The best way to say this is chronic conditions tend to be doubt related. But during the day, you've got all kinds of emotions going up and down, but you also have doubt. You have a lot of thinking happening. So doubt can be a very predominant factor when it comes to daytime symptoms as well. In my experience, especially when it's not a sporadic up and down thing, doubt is the central issue. So you want to look at the symptom profile. If you're having daytime experiences and it's random and you're getting spikes of things, that tends to be more emotion. If it tends to be there all the time, then you're having a doubt experience and it's happening during the day and those thoughts are happening a lot. So again, when it's acute, the emotions can be a central factor, but when it's chronic, it tends to be more doubt. Here are some doubt-related daytime symptom issues. Movement and posture and activity. You've got many more triggers during the day than you have at night. So this is one reason why some people can have a lot more symptoms during the day and not a lot of symptoms at night. When you're lying there, you can convince yourself, well, my body's at rest, and especially if you're thinking structurally, it all feels good. Now, I'm well aware that there are people who are like, but I can't lie down. That's one of the triggers itself. That's a different profile, and I do understand that. But when you're moving around a lot during the day, or let's say you're a therapist and you're sitting all the time, I used to think maybe that would cause pain. Turns out it doesn't, but it is a trigger. All of these things that give us a sense that it could hurt can lead to symptoms. During the day especially, much more, because there's many more triggers available. So you have to remember, the psychological defense is always looking for a plausible physical activity to connect to the pain. And when does it get it? Much more during the day than at night. We also have to remember that there's a lot of things going on at once during the day, and that makes it a lot more confusing. Nighttime has a different profile and a different problem. Sometimes there's too much going on in your head, but there doesn't tend to be as much going on in the outside world causing confusion. Societal commentary also contributes to doubt, and when does that happen? Generally during the day. It's actually one of the reasons that I'm a night owl, I think. I like that quiet at night. There's less commentary going on. All those people observing you. It can lead to confusion. It can lead to questions. It can lead to a lack of certainty. It can lead to fear. And we all know that's doubt. Daytime brings a lack of certainty, just in general. There's just a lot more going on. So actually, when I think about doubt, I think daytime tends to bring more lack of certainty, more confusion, and more questions, but nighttime tends to bring more fear. I can say more about that, but and if you have questions about it, certainly put it in the comments below. But I think it's a helpful way of thinking about the different profiles and how it tends to play out. Another thing that comes on that's pretty doubt-related during the day is attentional issues of mind-body struggles. So what do I mean by this? For some people, a big part of the mind-body process is that they cannot get their attention off of the symptoms. When I had Dan Buglio on, he said that most symptoms come from fear or attention. And while I don't think he's wrong about that, I extend it in certain directions. We agree on certain things. We're speaking very much the same language. But he is absolutely right on that attention can be a big part of people's pain experiences, and that happens much more during the day. I don't want to say that's uniformly true. There are some people who they're escaping the attention during the day because they have so much to do, and then they get there at night and they start attending to the symptoms. But it can work in this profile where because you're doing so many things with movement and posture and all those triggers, that attention can get really focused on the symptoms during the day. So attentional mind-body issues, they tend to come up with people who are a little less emotionally self-attuned. They might be really emotionally intelligent with respect to other people, but just not think about themselves that much. And those are the kind of people who tend to have daytime attentional mind-body issues. They're not that aware of what's going on with them. Ironically, these people do better not thinking about the symptoms and moving on. So it's a tricky thing because they can get attending to it very quickly. But generally speaking, I can help them get off of attentional issues much more easily because they're just not thinking as much about it and they can move on. There are also power-based daytime symptoms that are very common. So again, I start with emotions, and if I'm not finding it there, I'll toggle over to doubt. And again, if it's acute, I tend to look at emotion. If it's chronic, I tend to look at doubt. If you're not finding answers in either of those two columns, it's helpful to shift over to the power side of things and think about your daytime symptoms in relation to that. The power symptoms that come up at night tend to be mostly, fear-based, bringing down your power. But in my experience, nighttime symptoms tend to be mostly related to emotion or the fear part of the doubt column. Your power isn't getting enacted as much at night. You're not interacting with people as much. You're not seeing where you fit with things. So power-based symptoms do tend to relate to daytime much more. But then again, at night we dream. So I'm not saying anything is one way totally. I'm just trying to give you some guideposts. During the day, though, I would say your relationship with yourself is much more tested. There's a lot more chances to be out of power. I just want to remind everybody, you can be powerful or not with yourself or with others or with your symptoms. During the day is where you're interacting with others. It's where your sense of self-esteem tends to be more at stake. And as a result, a lot of power issues can come up around your relationship with yourself during the day because there's just so much happening and so many potential challenges to it. Your relationship with others is much more active. Listen, you can have interactions with others in your mind, so you don't have to be interacting with somebody directly in real life. You can be thinking about them before you're going to bed or dreaming about them. But generally speaking, daytime symptoms lend themselves much more to these kind of power struggles in relationship to other people because you're having lots of interactions with them. And here's another thing about that. A lot of people are bringing a lot of aggression. And again, if you're not having to interact with them, you're not dealing with it. You might be thinking about an aggressive experience during the day, but you're not dealing with it. So daytime symptoms can come up a lot around the aggression of other people and the overflow of that aggression coming to you. Now, here's an example of it. I really like to put in a plug for this because it's one that gets very misunderstood. A lot of aggression these days comes from supposed self-care. You're not effectively taking care of yourself if you're making someone else feel bad. Self-care does not involve that. But a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to be trod on here. I need to take care of myself. And suddenly they're being the aggressor. One helpful way of thinking about this, and I did a little video short on this, the difference between arrogance and confidence. The former, arrogance, is trying to feel good while wrecking the confidence of other people and not wanting them to feel good. The latter is actually feeling good, the latter meaning confidence, actually feeling good and wanting the same for everyone. So one thing to look out for in daytime symptoms is, what are people bringing? Are they bringing something that is destructive to your sense of goodness or just people in general? Or are they trying to build people up? Your relationship with your symptoms can also be active at either time, daytime or nighttime. But the limitations of being able to attend to your symptoms are bigger during the day. So as a result, sometimes daytime symptoms have an uptick, or that profile is more active when people don't have time to deal with those symptoms as much. Now let me talk about the contradiction between distraction and communication, and this is one of the reasons I brought up how to understand the unconscious last week. The contradiction between distraction and communication, the seeming distraction of it, could be understood as the emotions column tends to lend itself more to the distraction function of the symptoms, whereas the communication tends to lend itself more to the power column. It is trying to get you to be more powerful. Well, let's remember, in the unconscious, there are no opposites. These two things can exist at the same time, and they do. And it means that a lot of your daytime experiences are dealing with these various flows of contradictions. It's very good to know about the unconscious and just be able to think about it. Eventually, it becomes automatic. What I like to do is take the good communication and fight the symptoms that are that malevolent defense that's trying to get you, it's trying to distract you. It thinks it's helping, but actually it's just causing trouble. So now let's just talk briefly about what to do about daytime symptoms. This is for a separate video because there's a lot in it. And actually, if you saw my how-to on muscle pain, that's a good example of what to do about it. So if you haven't seen it, go check that video out. It can be used for any kind of symptoms. It talks about muscle pain, but it really relates to anything. That gives you a guidepost of what to do. But again, just the basics of what to do for this kind of profile where you're having daytime symptoms and not nighttime symptoms. First thing, look in the emotions for the onset and uptick and check your theme buckets. Maybe even check your core narrative, see if that's getting activated. Then you move to doubt if that doesn't work, because a lot of times doubt can creep in. Where there are triggers, did something happen? And your body will tell you. So take your body at its word. Knowledge of this happening, just awareness of the doubt, is often enough to get rid of the symptoms. You want to check all three doubt levels also. Doubt as to whether it's a mind-body process versus a structural one. Doubt as to whether mind-body processes can be cured. And doubt as to whether there's something in you or your symptom profile that's going to get in the way. Some people look at this daytime symptom profile and think, I don't know what to do. It's always bad during the day. And then so it has to be, I have to lie down all the time, essentially. Well, that's not going to be true. You can challenge this. You can find out why it's working, and there are things to do about it. But if you can't find it in the doubt column, you move to power next, and you check all three levels of power, meaning your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, and your relationship with your symptoms. And then if you didn't get it, guess what you do? Repeat, because you missed it. There is an answer. So that is literally what I do. I go through the emotions, then I go to doubt, then I go to power, and if I didn't find it, I go back. This just happened to me recently. Something happened. I knew I was upset. I was having a mind-body experience. I checked all three columns, didn't find it. Went back, did it again, still didn't find it. This was one rare case where I went into a therapy session of my own, and I talked about it, and I finally found it. But it was there, and it is always there. So with emotions, you know about the emotions and you pair them with the symptom, and that can reduce the symptom. With doubt, you challenge doubt at every corner and, of course, crush it, because that's what we do on Crushing Doubt. And if it's in the power column, you find ways to know your core narrative and expand that power. Please put your comments below, though. I want to hear from you about what you need to know about this symptom profile, and I'm just going to keep doing it. There are people who have symptoms daytime and nighttime. There is an answer for everything, and I'm trying to lay it out there in a variety of ways. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below, and I will answer you personally. Thank you so much for watching and listening.